Peter Trent, the former mayor of Westmount, in an opinion piece last week in the Gazette, wrote something which also kind of makes you wonder about what's going on downtown in general with all these high-rises that are going on right now. And he's on the line with us right now. Peter, thanks for being here.
My pleasure. It's almost as if they're trying to win a contest. How many high-rises can you stuff into one small site? Or how many varieties of high-rise can you put in one small site? It is really an abject failure, in my view. Leaving aside the question of the urban planning aspects, I'm just talking about the visual, appearance of it. Montreal's always trying to attract families to Montreal and downtown, not just the outskirts. And if you're going to attract families, are you going to do that with 37-story buildings? I just don't think so. And on top of that, they're not prepared to spend the money necessary to cater to young families. They're not going to have a school, not even an elementary school in that area. They are not going to have a park. They're not going to have all the other facilities that young families need, and sort of make up one of the reasons why young families are decamping from young Montreal, and they've been doing that for decades. And once again, we'll have buildings for singles and couples. But what we're really trying to do is get younger families between the age of 25 and 35, and also middle class. And while they've dropped the whole idea of subsidized housing, we have to keep in mind that it's all very well and good to spend money on subsidized housing. I agree with that. But you also have to keep in mind that no city can survive without a middle class. And Montreal's been losing the middle class. They've all gone off island.
Which makes you, the city knows the fact that, the demographics show that as well, people moving out of the city. I live in Griffintown. I've often talked about the fact that they've turned that into basically an apartment hell. It's condo after condo after condo. That's not for families, and there's very little there as well with respect to schools or parks or anything else. Taking that as bad urban planning, why do they continue, do you think, to do this?
They're given the keys to the city to the developer. They, rather than taking the initiative to really do the proper urban planning, Montreal generally tends to say, "Oh my God, they're prepared to actually develop something in this area. Let's just let them do what they want." There's no control whatsoever. There's no vision. I keep saying to people that the city of Paris, the highest building is something like 8 or 9 stories, and it's extremely densely developed. You don't have to go to 30 stories to wind up having dense development. But for a developer, it means a lot more money. But of course, they're building all these condos on a relatively small piece of land. So it's great for the developer, but I don't know whether it's so great for people who will live in these high rises. The future cannot just be made up of older couples and students. It cannot just be made up with very wealthy people. It has to be made up of the middle class, as I said, which have generally tended to decamp. Yeah. So I don't know what they're trying to do. We in Westmount we got the same fever back in the 60s when we upzoned areas of Westmount that were close to Montreal or adjacent to Montreal. So this is how we got Plaza Towers and a bunch of other high-rises like that. But eventually we started realizing this is a mistake. And we started in fact, when I was on council for the first time, we downzoned. We downzoned the heights because we realized this was not a way to build a community. You can't build a community of high-rises. You can't. You can't build families. You can't have a wide swath of various income groups together. It doesn't work.
So my question as we wrap up then is, what does work? Have you seen a model somewhere? And I know the mayors in Europe this week are looking at some of the major cities. They're like Paris, which you mentioned. Do you think the city has an idea to take away from some of these that you've seen that you could say, you know what, that's the model we should be following. That's what we need in the city.
Well, look at Densification. Back in '68, when it was started to develop, it was all at the most 4 stories, and it was fairly densely developed. Then, all of a sudden, they started building 30-story behemoths, and so they changed the whole nature of Densification. So that we have some examples right in our own midst of the difference between 4-story, 5, 6-story dense development and just great big tall high-rises with, of course, wind tunnel effects and all the other negative things that come along with high-rises. And no space how's a kid going to go play in that area? It's impossible. Traditional European cities that are really quite densely populated, and take a page from their book, as opposed to continuing this lack of plan and simply just saying, well, to a developer, what do you want to do? And essentially just rubber stamping whatever the developer wants to put up.
Look, I wondered, I've often thought, and we have to wrap it up here, Peter, I've often thought the city, in the case of Griffintown anyway, it was simply a matter of developers saying, okay, here's what we're going to do. And as you alluded to, saying to the city going, oh, great, that's an undeveloped part, here you go. And the city being happy just to take the money in granting permits and calling it a day and hoping for the best without a real plan.
But let me just leave you with this. The actual taxes you get from the residential sector don't really cover the cost of the people living in it. Where they get their money is from the commercial sector, because the tax rate is 4 times. So people think that they're doing this in order to get the tax revenues. No. Because if you don't have any residents, you don't have any demand on taxes. And I'm fond of saying that a town with absolutely no residents, a ghost town, costs nothing to run. And so what they don't seem to understand is that it's the commercial sector that's contributing 60% of the taxes in the old city of Montreal. And it's not the residential. So unless, of course, you're putting up condos where each condo's worth $1 million or $2 million, and then, of course, you're making out like a bandit. But if you put in normal-sized condos, you're not really making much money. As the population increases, the demand on services of that population increases at the same